What's up guys, Jabrel here from Neo Vintage Games, and I got a chill video for you guys. I basically, as you can see, I have a giant pile of games next to me, and for the past few weeks, month and a half or so, I've been buying a lot of different games, filling in gaps in my collection. Mostly it's stuff that either I grew up with and like sold and I'm like rebuying it, because you know when you're younger and you don't have a lot access to a ton of money, you're always like reselling stuff to get new stuff. And so I lost a lot of my childhood collection, so a lot of my collecting has been pretty much rebuying those old games. But also there's some stuff here that like when I was a kid I really wanted, but I didn't have access to, or the ability to get it there, so I got it then. And then I got some new stuff too, so it's kind of a mixed bag. You can see a whole bunch of different consoles, so just sit back, relax. We're gonna be chilling, you know, talking over some really dope games that I got, and we'll make good time on it. So let's just start with the more recent stuff, stuff that I'm actually playing right now. So I got Paper Mario, the Origami King. I talked about it on the latest Neo Vintage News episode, but yeah, brand new Switch game, was able to get it physically on Amazon. Typically, I'm a physical gamer, obviously, but with the whole COVID situation and Amazon facing delays and stuff like that, I've actually switched to kind of digital games, as long as like the price differential is not too crazy. I've been going digital to be able to play things day one. So like, for example, I have Ghost of Tsushima digitally, but I got this game physically just because the wait time between when it show up, I'd be able to play Ghost. So able to get this. Really love the cover art too. Really cute. Like what they're doing there. Great game too. Next game, Ghost Recon Breakpoint. Also talked about it on Amazon. Really dope game. It has like a pretty samey gameplay loop that kind of loops again, so great might be an overstatement, but definitely, you know, fulfilled the job of what I was looking for to do, which was pretty much burn time until some new games came out. It was only $10 on Amazon. I don't know if it's still that price, but for Xbox One and PS4, it was both $10 on Amazon. Well worth it. I spoke a little bit about it on not the latest, but the second to last episode of Neo Vintage News. Next one I'm really excited about is The Lion King on Sega Genesis. Now you guys know I'm a pretty big Genesis fan. I got a whole bunch back there. And I've pretty much gotten a lot of the Genesis games that I wanted to collect for. I got even some that I have like on the Sega Genesis Mini that I've been playing a lot and I wanted a physical for. And pretty much one of the two holes I had in my collection was I just wanted Aladdin, I wanted Lion King. Aladdin, luckily I got in a couple months back in my Video Games monthly box, and I just picked this one up. It was only $10 on eBay or so like that. Really good quality sticker, if you can see. Unfortunately, like, I mean, I could have got it CIB, but the problem was, or it wasn't a problem, it was just a little bit more expensive. They had CIB typically for about 15 to 20. They had cart only for 10. I was like, you know what, I'm buying a ton of games. Let me, you know, save a little bit of money where I can. So I got it just as a cart. Plays amazingly. Fantastic game. If you don't know anything about these Genesis kind of Disney platformers, I mean, they have amazing pixel art, tight gameplay, really holds up really well. And it holds up so well they actually did a Lion King Aladdin kind of port for modern consoles. So that's available if you really want to play it in the highest fidelity. But again, keep in mind that the carts themselves are actually really inexpensive for really great games. Next one's pretty interesting. We got Twin Breaker, Sacred Symbols Adventure. I got this is like the limited edition physical that is shipped from Play Asia through East Asia Soft. And this, if you don't know, this is kind of like a brick baker game. We talked about it on the Neo Vintage podcast when that was up and running. And this is basically two guys who do a PlayStation podcast, Colin Moriarty and Chris Raygun podcast that I was a big fan of. And so I ordered this a couple months back, and this finally came in. Game's really awesome. Lily Mo Games, awesome guy who makes really great games, and yeah, I'm glad to have this. I got the Vita version because obviously like Vita games are really kind of going out for the most part. I mean, everything's done. You have a couple of Japanese devs that are still dropping us stuff on there, and like limited run games, I believe. Might still do a couple Vita things, but for the most part, Vita cards have all been allocated by different publishers to use. So new Vita games are going to be very sparse going forward. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we get like maybe 15 max for the generation before things tap out. So yeah, Twin Breaker, I had to get it on Vita, but it also comes with cross buy, so I'm able to play it on PlayStation 2 as well. Two here, we're gonna go to some PlayStation games. First one is Gran Turismo. came with so it has like this weird like dual disc setup, but with only like one disc there, one holder. It's really weird. This front thing, if you could see, it doesn't have a little pop-in or anything like that. It is missing the booklet, unfortunately. But yeah, really dope PlayStation 1 racer. Obviously a franchise that still exists today, done by Polyphony Digital, Sony first-party team. Really dope franchise, and I really wanted to start collecting, and I was like, I want to beef up my PlayStation 1 collection. So what are some PlayStation 1 games I want? Well, a lot of the PlayStation 1 games I want are like really expensive. So I wanted Parasite Eve, I want Symphony of the Night physically. Obviously you can see I have the poster up there. Big fan of Castlevania, but both of those are really out of my price range. Same thing with the original Persona. So I'm like, well, what are some that are like relatively inexpensive that are actually still fun to play? And so I got some other ones here that we'll get into, but yeah, Gran Turismo. Next one, Gran Turismo 2. Same thing as the first one. They were both inexpensive. This one does come with all the included, has like a little PlayStation ad here, all the discs, booklet, everything. So complete in-box, which is really, really dope. I love getting complete in-box stuff for older games because when you look at like the advertisements and the booklets and stuff like that, it's like just a time travel to another different era. So yeah, man, really excited to have this. Unfortunately, obviously, greatest hits. Nobody really wants the greatest hits edition, the ugly green label. But I mean, what can you do? I'll take them as they come. And they were really inexpensive. They were both only, I think they were either 10 or just under 10 each. So really inexpensive. And that's how it is for me. Like, I'm not so much concerned about collecting really rare or expensive stuff, but rather games that I can get the most play out of, the games that I really enjoy, the games that really mean a lot to me or that generation. These two are really, really dope, and I'm gonna kind of bring them down together. I actually got these brand new off Amazon. Now, for you guys that don't know, Square Enix has a whole bunch of greatest hits games available on Amazon for relatively inexpensive prices, brand new PS1 games. That's how I was able to get my Final Fantasy VII. That was how I was able to get the Final Fantasy Anthology Collection. I got that 4 and 5 through that. I got 6 on there. And then 8 and 9 I got a different way. So yeah, these are really, really dope games. The first one is Final Fantasy Chronicles. This is the Final Fantasy, what is this? Final Fantasy 4 and Chrono Trigger. And I was really excited to have Chrono Trigger. I've been meaning to play that for quite a while. It's not really on any of the HD mini consoles that have been coming out, unfortunately, and the cart is kind of expensive. I don't know exactly what it retails for now in the resale market, but last time I checked, it was coming on low end around 60, and I wasn't really trying to spend $60 on Chrono Trigger. And the DS one I hear is really, really good port, but I haven't. It's just outside my price range what I'm trying to pay for a single game right now. And so this was a really inexpensive way to get it. It seems like a fine port. Again, I haven't dived super into it, so I'm sure there's a lot of information on like what's the best way to play Chrono Trigger. It's probably the DS version, but this version seems entirely fine. The only problem is, yeah, there is load times. And then, yeah, Final Fantasy 4, which is an absolute classic. Not my favorite Final Fantasy game, but a game I like a lot too. Chrono Cross, a game that I think is criminally slept on. A lot of people show a lot of love to Chrono Trigger. Don't really talk too much about Chrono Cross, but there's some really interesting stuff about this game. And obviously, like for you guys who haven't played this one is very similar to the Final Fantasy games of that era, so pretty much expect that. But yeah, got a lot of love for Chrono Cross. I would love to get through it. I don't know if I'm going to play it front to back anytime soon, but I did want to add it to the collection, so in the event that I get some downtime, I can hop into it. Next is some NES games. We have Ninja Gaiden, absolute classic. Love this franchise. Really good quality cart that I found online. Obviously not a repro. I always go with trusted sellers, and I look at the sticker placement and everything, so there's different things you can look at to make sure that you're not buying a fake. And this is a relatively inexpensive game, so I don't know how many Ninja Gaiden repros there are out there, but really excited to add this to the collection. For the longest I had Ninja Gaiden 2, and I looked through my collection, I'm like, what am I missing? Because I put together a little spreadsheet, and I was like, all right, so what games would I like for each console, so I can have some guidance on my collecting, because I pretty much got to the point now where my collection is by no means big, but I've gotten a lot of the games that I wanted. So at this point now, it's like, okay, what games do I know of that I think would be cool to add to the collection? And so that's where I was going. And I was going through my collection, and I played Ninja Gaiden a million times. I used to play it on my PSP emulated. I played it on all different stuff. Obviously, it's on, if I'm not mistaken, the NES Mini, if I'm not mistaken. And it's also on the Switch now, too. So there's many ways to play this. And I was like, wait, I don't have Ninja Gaiden 1. I could have swore I had it. Didn't. So I picked this up. Really glad to have that. Excellent game. Next one is Rygar. I actually saw a video on it in my YouTube suggestions the other day, and it wasn't really a game that I was familiar with. And then shortly after that, it came on Switch, part of the NES, what is it? I forget what it is, the virtual console thing that they have set up there. So if you could see right here, really good quality cart. Unfortunately, got a little marker back here, but I'm pretty sure I can clean that off with relative ease. Yeah, it should be able to come off just fine. It's a pretty fun game. It's something that when I played it on Switch and I saw the video on it, it looked relatively interesting. And I was like, you know what, I want to give it at least a shot. So I bought it on cart, I hooked it up with my Retro Champ console so I can play it portably. And I've made a decent amount of headway. It's a little bit obtuse, there's not much there deep about it. So it's not my favorite NES game, but it's something I'm glad to add to the console, because I think there's some interesting stuff that they do playing around with parallax scrolling. I feel like the enemy spawning is a little haphazard on it. It's kind of, it's not the very precise kinetic action you'd see in like a Castlevania or a Mega Man, for example, where everything is very cleverly placed. And yeah, there are like limitations of hardware, so certain things spawn at certain time. But this one, it's just a constant swarm of enemies that you cannot, if you for a moment lose track of what you're doing, like you're gonna get overrun so quickly, and it's kind of a mess. So I'm kind of like mixed on Rygar, but I'm gonna spend some more time getting into it, and maybe I can make a little bit more headway into it and get a little deeper, and maybe it opens up a little bit more. Next one is really interesting. So lately I've randomly had the thought, I was like, you know what? When I was a kid, I was really into Naruto, and I can't even say it's a kid because it made it well into adulthood. I was watching new episodes of Naruto up until 2015, and sorry for you guys who are not anime fans here. I'm gonna take a quick segue into anime. Yeah, grew up on Naruto, followed it all the way to the ending. Boruto came out, didn't really get into the little sequel series about his son. But recently I was like, you know what would be really cool if I started rereading Naruto from the beginning, because I hadn't read that stuff, I mean, since my childhood. And I hadn't even seen the anime material since my childhood. Because again, so many years had passed since the series began. I mean, it went for what, 15, 16 years or something like that before it ended. So yeah, it had been a long time since I read that early material. So I started rereading it, and as I started rereading it, I started getting reacclimated to my love for Naruto. And so I was like, you know what? There's a lot of Naruto games I had as a youth, or that I really wanted as a youth, that I need to get. So that's where these come in. Got 4 new Naruto games, which basically completes the kind of line of Clash of Ninja games. So for you guys that don't know, Naruto had a different series that were going on of games back in the day. So for the Game Boy Advance, you had the Ninja Console series that carried on into the DS and stuff like that. And eventually, I think it finished on the 3DS with like a Naruto versus Sasuke type game or something like that. Then there was the PS2 Ultimate Ninja series, which continues to this day. There's Ultimate Ninja Storm games that are still coming out to this day. And then there was one that came out on GameCube that eventually went to Wii, which was the Clash of Ninja series. And these are the ones that I had as a kid. Now, these are by no means the objectively better games, but they're games that I have a lot of love and nostalgia for. And I do like the kind of more linear 2D combat. Now, you can kind of play around with the environment a little bit by pressing like R2 and L2, where you can kind of shift, almost kind of in a Soul Calibur type way. But generally speaking, it is a linear 2D fighter, akin to like a Mortal Kombat, if anything, less like the arena-based fighters that you see in the Ultimate Ninja series. So the first one I got was the original Clash of Ninja. Now, part of my collection, I do have Clash of Ninja, let me get it for you guys, Clash of Ninja 2. So with this, I have the whole collection right here. But yeah, so let's just go through it. Clash of Ninja 1, I picked up on GameCube, really inexpensive game. Not a great game. I literally beat it in one sitting in under 25 minutes. You could beat the story mode. It's so fast. There is a lot of replayability in the way that like the replayability of any fighter game. Like if you can play with friends, if you're willing to play the arcade mode with different characters over and over again, I guess you can get some replayability out of it. But there's very few characters. Yeah, there's like, you can play as like 6 or 7 characters. It's the roster is pretty much on the cover there. So it's pretty terrible, to be honest, especially it's outdone by its sequels overwhelmingly. But I did want to add it to the collection. It's inexpensive. Next one, Clash of Ninja 2. Didn't buy it, but I just want to have it with everything else here. This is the one that I had as a kid and I played the most of. Love this game. Expanded the roster there too, so good game to have. Next one is one that I actually never got to play. These 3 are ones that I did not have as a kid because when they were coming out, I grew up in like a religious household. My parents got weird about the Naruto thing, so I wasn't able to play the ones by the time that they started coming out on Wii. I was pretty much stranded with the GameCube versions, and then I had to sell these when they came out. It was a whole thing. So I never got to play these ones, but this is Clash of Ninja Revolution. And if you're interested on my thoughts, I guess you can follow us on social media and ask me in the comment section, or ask me in the comment section of this one once I give this more of a shot. I can give you guys my opinions on it. Yeah, so Clash of Ninja Revolution. And if anything, I think the only difference is it has like a similar roster. I think it adds like Itachi and stuff like that, and then adds a kind of original storyline around the Ambu Black Ops, if I'm not mistaken. We have Clash of Ninja Revolution 2. This actually might be the Ambu one, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, this is the Ambu one. This one adds, okay, this is the one who adds like Tsunade and Jiraiya and stuff like that. So it expands the cast. This one adds new story elements to the Clash of Ninja Revolution 2. And I'm sorry for you guys who are not like Naruto fans or weebs or anything like that. Next one, Clash of Ninja Revolution 3. And this is the only Clash of Ninja game to take place, obviously, in part 2 of Naruto or Shippuden, where there is an age gap or an age jump, a time skip. And this game, this is the one that I played the most since buying all of these, because I just received Clash of Ninja Revolution 1 and 2 today. I got this like 2 days ago, and I jumped into it, played it on the Wii for a little bit. Plays pretty good, plays how I remember these two, just with different characters pretty much. The only difference is that the story mode has like weird objectives with each battle, so instead of just beating an enemy CPU, they're basically like, beat him with this move, beat him in this time period, beat these two people with these moves. Like, really specific objectives that I find personally really, really annoying to get through the story mode, because there's one fight that I got in like maybe 5 or 6 fights deep into the story mode that like for the life of me I can't pass right now. Eventually I'm sure I can grind it out and get my skills up, but what they want me to do is like beat this guy with this one specific move, but that guy has crazy range and the one I'm using doesn't, and it's just a whole nightmare. I'm eventually going to probably figure it out, but I'm really excited to have this game. And yeah, let's go into some PS2 games at this point now. These are the ones I'm really excited for, and these are kind of a mix of stuff that I grew up with and stuff that I just really think are important for me to add to the collection. First one is Test Drive. Pretty classic game in my view. PS2 racer, akin to like the Midnight Club games if you played those or something like that. Not that great. Interesting thing, it was done by Atari. And the cool thing about this is during the load screens, you kind of have like, you get to play Pong and stuff like that. So that's kind of a nice little touch. An amazing soundtrack too for the time too. You got Young MC and Ja Rule and DMX and all the people who were popular at that time. This game, yeah, came out back in 2002. So pretty old game, but really, really enjoyable. I think it still plays pretty well too as well. Next one, Naruto Ultimate Ninja 2. You remember I mentioned the Ultimate Ninja games that came out of PS2. That's what these came with. This is actually came through Video Games Monthly. The story behind this one is on not my latest Video Games Monthly video, but the video before that, about a month ago. One of my games that I got in my Video Games Monthly box didn't work, and there was some oxidation in the pins, which does not happen typically with Video Games Monthly games at all. They're always pre-tested, they always work really well. Somehow that game got damaged at some point and it was unplayable. And normally I would have cleaned it up and got it going and played it, and if it played good enough, I'm not mad at it. I'll take a little bit of damage as long as it plays. But unfortunately I couldn't get it, so I reached out to their customer support and they were able to send me a replacement game, and that's what this turned out to be, because at that point I had toggled on PS2 games to see if maybe, you know, I could beef up my PS2 collection. But then I kind of decided against it, unclicked it from Video Games Monthly, because I figured most of the PS2 games that I actually want I could just buy on my own separately and it'd be a lot less expensive, and I'd kind of just get it done and over with. So yeah, Ultimate Ninja 2, pretty good game, I like it. MX Unleashed, game I grew up with. Me and my brothers really liked this game. Typical BMX game, a lot of great rock music soundtrack on that. And again, the soundtracks of the games at this time are absolute classic. I'm not a big like motocross or like sports fan or anything like that, but I got a lot of love for this game. I grew up with it. And when you grow up with not a lot of money, when you go to GameStop, you'll pick up pretty much anything that's relatively inexpensive. And I feel like at the time, this even back in like the mid 2000s when I had this game, it was probably only a couple bucks at that time, because it's not a very popular, well sought off game. And this franchise by that point had gone on to like the MX versus ATV type games, and had moved on to the next gen. And I still was able to pick up a PS2 game. Yeah, really inexpensive game now. I got it for like 10 bucks, so happy to have that. Next ones I'm really excited about. The Kingdom Hearts franchise, basically. So I went on Amazon, I was like, I want to buy the Kingdom Hearts games for the PS2. So it's Kingdom Hearts 1, Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories, or Re-Chain of Memories, which is the PS2 remake that came out right around Kingdom Hearts 2 of the Game Boy game. So got that. And Kingdom Hearts 2, my favorite Kingdom Hearts game, which I think is, a lot of people would agree, one of the best of the franchise, next to like Birth by Sleep, in my opinion. But yeah, I wanted to get these games for the PS2. I felt like it's like a must-have in my collection. I pretty much wanted to get everything, like the biggest Square games that I like, because obviously with the PS2 stuff, I'm a big Square fan. I like what they did back in the day. I don't buy everything they do now, but back in the day, I like all their stuff. Old Final Fantasies, old Kingdom Hearts, their weird, stuff that on the PS1 that they released. So I wanted to get these, and I went on eBay and I found a seller that had all three of these for like, I think $15 or something like that. Reputable seller, looked like the condition were fine, obviously used, but no crazy scratches. So I picked it up, got it in the mail shortly after, tried them out, and they worked perfectly. So I mean, these three games for $15, in my opinion, is a steal. Typically, you can find these each for about 10 each. They're not expensive games, but then again, yeah, it brings it to you to 30. So I saved pretty much 50% by buying it used in kind of like a lot there. So excited to have that. Next two is Final Fantasy X and X-2. I actually did a full playthrough of Final Fantasy X on the Switch. It's the remastered version that they released. And then Final Fantasy X-2 I could not get into, but these are games that I felt like were relatively inexpensive and really good to have, and they're absolute classics from that era. So I really wanted to add them to the collection, so I picked them up, really good quality. I actually got them in cases that were kind of beat up, so what I did was I found some PS2 games that I didn't care about, like my Madden 2003 or something like that, and I swapped that for Final Fantasy X-2, and then my Final Fantasy X case was beat up, and I actually just swapped it for a DVD case, because again, it works. So it's not an original case. I'm not one of those guys who cares too much about the original box and everything like that. As long as I can have my games housed, safe, and good to display, I'm happy with it. So yeah, Final Fantasy X and X-2. And then the last one is one of the ones I'm most excited for, which is Dirge of Cerberus Final Fantasy VII. Now, this is a criminally underrated game. Obviously, a lot of people talk about Final Fantasy VII. Some people talk about Crisis Core even. Advent Children is well beloved. But this is one that people don't talk about too much. And for you guys that don't know, Final Fantasy VII is a family of different multimedia properties. So you had Advent Children as the movie. You had the main game, 7, that everything kind of came around. Crisis Core came out on PSP, Dirge of Cerberus came out on PS2, and then there was actually a PC game that played, I think, as a prequel, if I'm not mistaken, of like some Shinra agents and stuff like that. So this is the one that I feel like, next to the PC one, is the one that like nobody really talks about. And the game is actually pretty great. I bought this with the full anticipation that it was going to be pretty terrible, because again, it's like a weird third-person shooter game that nobody really talks about, and games of this era are very hit or miss in terms of like shooting and stuff like that. Like old like first person shooters don't play like the best, especially if you go back to the PS2 like Medal of Honors and stuff like that. And I know GoldenEye is well beloved, but again, they're a little clunky. The old Call of Duties are a little clunky. And then the third person shooter got really good during the Xbox 360 era, obviously, with Gears and stuff like that. But back here, not that great. But I started playing the game, ran through it, played maybe an hour or so, and it held up really well. Visually, it's a pretty stunning game for a PS2 game. And again, going back to PS2 lately, I was actually pretty wowed by how beautiful some of the games are and how some of the like texture work is. And again, it's not the highest resolution textures, but they were doing some cool stuff back then with like different light particle effects, a little bit of like fog effects and water trickling and stuff like that, wet backgrounds, character design and stuff like that. They were playing around with some cool stuff, and I felt like Square Enix has always been a developer or a publisher that's pushed their teams to push the visual fidelity of each console. They've always done that, and I think they did an excellent job with this game. So I'm excited to go deeper into it and see lore-wise where it goes. It's just really trippy to be able to see the Final Fantasy VII world realized in a 3D high resolution state so far ago. Like this is what, 2006 if I'm not mistaken, which is 13 or 14 years before we saw it in Final Fantasy VII Remake, which is where we see Midgar as now. So to see Midgar realized different than the original game, like 10 years after the original game came out, but on the PS2, is really, really trippy. So yeah, that's pretty much all the games I bought. Hope you guys enjoyed the videos. These videos will come out as frequently pretty much as I buy things. So starting from this point onwards, I'm gonna start accumulating more games, and eventually when I get enough, I don't know how many games I had here, like 20 or something like that. When I get enough games, I'll be able to do a video again. So maybe in a couple months you'll see another video update for you guys. I'll keep you guys posted. But again, if you would like to know about these games as I buy them, go follow me on Instagram. It's linked down below. But if I forget be sure to comment and remind me. And I'll leave my Instagram down below of my retro gaming journey. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Until next time, this is Jabrell from Neo Vintage Games. Love you guys. Bye.